Hello and welcome to Mediums in Action with me, Martin Litt-Wilson, and my good friend and expert medium, Ian Doherty.
Hello, Martin. It's nice to chat to you again. I hope you've been keeping well and, more importantly, out of trouble. How has your week been?
Been a weird week, Ian. Had some really strange tapping noises, like metal. Sounds almost like a metal sheet being tapped, tap, 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 tap. And it's woke me up out of my sleep. Now, I'm a heavy sleeper. So if I literally fall asleep within 5 minutes. I'm kind of lay down, boom, and I'm a log for the rest of the night. But a couple of times this week, and I've had this sound, very, very clear sound, and it sounds like thin metal, very thin sort of sheet metal type, and it sounds like tapping. Now, we've got nothing in the house that's sheet metal or anything like that. So I heard it the other night, and my wife got up, and she didn't know I was awake listening, so I kept quiet while she was walking around because I thought I'm going to see if it happens again.
Yeah.
It didn't happen. As soon as she got into bed, tap, 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 it was there again. And I said, it's definitely, it's something in this house. It's some tapping somewhere. So yeah, just weird experiences like that. It's are you having similar activity at the moment?
Yes, I'm having noises in the bedroom. I'm having noises in my art studio. They sound like rustling because I thought one of the cats brought a mouse in or something, but it didn't make sense. And then even on asking that question, I had it right next to me as if to say, no, it's this, and then there's sort of like furtive movement, you imagine a cat or something, because I do have 4, but they went in the bedroom, and I'm hearing them jumping around, or hearing what I believe was a cat jumping around, and then I have a big blinding flash of light. It's, imagine a darkened room, and then you got your smartphone, and suddenly you take a flash. You know how bright that is? That is what it looks like, but it's pinpointed in one direction only, flash, and then gone. There's no noise, there's no other than, it's just, as if I put it as maybe an energy discharger or that sort of thing. I don't mean static as in the scientific laws that are in our world, where you're looking at, you can rub a balloon on your head, and that gets static. This was just, it was an intense bright light, like we used to have on our paranormal events, didn't we?
But was it like the Galleries of Justice ones? You remember
yes,
that one? Where it went
it wasn't multiples. It was that bright, but it was just a one.
Yeah.
But it was that bright. It was pure white, because normally we get the sort of the light blue nimbus, don't we?
Yeah.
But this one was very, very bright white, and actually I had to close my eyes. I thought, I can't see.
Bizarre. It was really strange that with the white lights that we used to experience, because I think you'd been with us at least 2 or 3 years by then, and then this phenomena kind of came in. It suddenly started happening. And what was interesting from my perspective is that there was different mediums going to different locations, and obviously I think this was sort of very early Facebook days, so not everybody was communicating. But I would get communications from Paul, or I'd get communications from somebody else or yourself saying, oh, we've started having these flashing lights. Yeah. So it was like, oh, what's going off here? What's starting here? And you had the ones in Warwick, and obviously the ones that myself and you, when we were in the chapel at the Galleries of Justice. And it almost looked like a ball of light kind of flashing, kind of popping almost above that guy's head, that poor guy's head.
So. Well, no, because it's a very enclosed area. We had a large group, so we stood almost facing each other, and we thought he'd had one of those, detachable the 35mm. Sometimes there's a detachable camera unit, flash unit, sorry. And we thought it was that, because it was just going. It started from maybe around his chest height and went up above, and we put our torches on, made him empty his pockets. There was
nothing, was there? There was absolutely nothing that could have caused that. And I think also as well is, if I remember correctly, we worked out that the final height where we saw it, it was way beyond how he could have stretched as well.
Yes.
Because I was practically, I think I was stood about 3 feet away from that guy, and I didn't see any arm, I didn't see anything at all, and it seemed to pop and light up the chapel as it went up.
Yeah,
and
it was like having your flash set to multiple burst and boom, boom, boom. It didn't make a noise. That's just me trying to help people understand. But it was like boom, 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 boom. Flash, 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 flash. You
It was
know.
really bizarre, really bizarre. I mean, it's interesting as mediums and investigators that you have multiple cases, and I always remember that one where I think this was not too long ago, but a young child was having experiences. I think if I remember correctly, you told me that his mother thought that he was possibly mediumistic or
Yeah,
something. So you went out to investigate that he was
yeah.
seeing I think it was a figure in his bedroom or near his curtains.
Yeah, there was. He was. I do feel he was mediumistic. Obviously, I won't give any names because I haven't had time to ask them. But he was. He was. He was at the age where the mind can play a very active part. We all have it. We watched that horror film and we rushed up the stairs in case somebody's chasing us, or we go in the toilet in the middle of the night along that long corridor that seems to never end. Are we going to get back without getting snapped up? And he was a little bit, there's something here, and we sat down logical. His mum said he's quite logical minded as well. We do think he's also got mediumistic abilities because she's a medium. I sat down with him and he said, there it is, and I thought, okay, I know what it is. It's not just a case of me telling him, we had to show it and him to witness it. So I said to him, I said, look, what it is cars coming along the road, because where his house is, it faced the road. I said, and it's it's the lights of the cars coming in. As they turn the bend of the road, it goes straight to your window, and then it moves along the wall, and it casts shadows in the room. So he said, no, it's not. I said, I tell you what, let's sit here and we'll wait for the car. So he said, go on then, because appealing to his logicality. Yeah. He said, right, there's a car coming, you see it? He said, yeah, let's sit down here, let's watch that wall. And as the car came past, boom, boom, boom. And he sort of looked at me and went, is that it? I said, yeah. I said, so there's no monster? I said, no, mate, there isn't. So he was happy because he has witnessed it, he has worked it out alongside me, and it's evidenced it. So he knows now it's not the monster that's living under the bed. It's very much the case of it's car lights and your imagination coupled with sensitivities that make 2 and 2 6, part of the fight and flight, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I always remember when we went to Plesley Vale Mills, which was a really interesting place. I mean, it was on the outskirts of Mansfield. It was a converted cotton mills, and a lot of it had become offices. And I always remember turning up one day, and there was a notice board. And I think her name was Sue, and she'd put your orb photographs. Yeah. She'd printed them all off that had been emailed where people had come to, and it was interesting. And I said to her, if you look at these orb photographs, have you ever noticed that the ones that are outside are more see-through, and the ones that are inside have got colour or they're kind of thicker? Yeah. And she said, yeah, that's really weird. Do you think the outside ones are evil? I said, no, the outside ones are mist and the ones inside are dust and also fabric. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, as even as mediums, you've got to have a really open mind. And I mean, I always remember this case that I investigated, and this was, I'm trying to think now, it must be 20 odd years ago easily. But I had a young couple contact me. They'd moved into a new house on the outskirts of Sheffield. They were telling me that one night they had a bunch of friends round, and her husband, Bob, was sat on the chair corner. He started making jokes about his wife, and his friends were laughing, and she was laughing along as well. They were just having a bit of banter between them all, when all of a sudden the door slammed and he was pushed off the chair. He literally went down onto the floor. And then their children started saying that there was a man with a beard upstairs, and he was stood next to an old wardrobe, and they believed that he was an old sailor.
Yeah.
So, and all this stuff was happening, and they asked me to come and investigate, and it turned out that actually they were semi-detached. I did a couple of vigils there. There was no doubt it did feel like there was energy there, but I couldn't really work out what it was at that time. But a lot of the sounds were, I can hear his footsteps, he's coming closer. And it was obvious that the noise was actually the next door neighbours coming up the stairs. But because it was quiet, because they'd actually turned all the television off, turned the TV off, turned everything off, and were sat quiet, they could hear next door neighbours' noises a lot easier. So suddenly, something that's always there that they usually ignore, that they've got the TV on or might not hear it, suddenly it was it was a man, an old sailor walking around. Now Sheffield's nowhere near any sea or, or anything, so that was weird. And I said, well, I mean, the best thing to do is, what I used to do is do some research on the house, and I used to say to them, look, if it helps you, call out a name and say, look, Bob, please stop doing that. It's upsetting us. Or please stop doing that. It's upsetting us. Because sometimes spirit's trying to communicate, and people can misunderstand it. And that used to work a lot. I used to provide a list of previous inhabitants of the house and say, look, if you get upset and something's happening, then go through these names and let's find out what's going off. And it was about 3 months later that they contacted me and they said, oh, we've worked out what was doing it, and it's still going ballistic. And I said, what is it? She said, I've got a demon trapped in my ring. I said, what? And she said, yeah. She said, I've got an onyx ring that Bob had bought me, and I need you to come over and look at it. So I went over, and she'd got this onyx ring. Now, in Sheffield, onyx is seen as bad luck.
Okay.
So there's two things in Sheffield that are bad luck. Birds, you can't have birds on any pictures or plates or anything. It's seriously bad luck. And I think it's a throwback of the mining times.
Yeah.
That, the canary, if the canary died, then, there was serious gas or methane in the mines and you need to get out. So in Sheffield, birds are really bad luck. And the second thing is onyx. Onyx is seen as a bad stone. So she already had that folklore. And she said, look, if you look carefully, you can see a horned little man, like a devil in this ring. And since Bob bought me this, we've just got nothing but activity, which is nonsense because I knew that they'd had activity long before that ring. But again, it was a psychological thing. So I said, well, the best thing to do is either sell the ring or destroy it. And what they did is took it to a scrap. Listen to this for overkill. Yeah. Took it to one of them big machines that crushes scrap and threw it in there. And the relief on their faces when they did that was amazing. And they never had any activity again. Now, was it the ring? No, it wasn't. No, but it was back to the activity before. They became heightened. Every noise, every sound, every movement, their houses hadn't been modernized, so there was a lot of ambient air temperature moving. It was bizarre, and it's amazing how people can really get themselves worked up into a particular situation. And I think their house did have a spirit there. It was very friendly, and it was just trying to make itself known, but not in the right way. It
is, and like I say, there's something I think that we've both talked about privately as well as on one of the podcasts. People who go on these paranormal events, they become more heightened naturally. So when they're going home, they're more aware of what might be there, as in a family member, and therefore they think they got somebody that's followed them. Oh, we've got that Roman soldier from wherever who's followed me home. What would he want to come and watch you watching Coronation Street for? It is. So it's people's. If I say ignorance, I don't mean to say that people are ignorant. It's just lack of understanding of what else it could be. And that's what I do believe our podcasts do. They help people question. They see us talking, mediums talking in a scientific, a non-religious way, and trying to understand and make, sort of give a plausible alternative, if not de facto, of what it actually is.
You do make a really good point there, and I mean, we took hundreds of thousands of people on ghost hunts around the country. We only had a handful of people who claimed that they'd taken something home, that a spirit had come home with them. Yeah. And when actually we talked to all of them, it became very, very apparent that before they'd been on an event, they'd had mediumistic or ghost experiences before.
Yeah, definitely.
And actually, I think out of the handful, 3 of those have actually gone on to do mediumship courses and understand what was going off. The other 3, when we talked to them and said, well, actually, do you realize that you're just more aware of it? The whole purpose of a ghost hunt, when we're doing the ghost hunt, is we tell you to sit quiet, we tell you to be observant, to be aware of how you feel, how your emotions feel. Are you hot? Are you cold? How do you feel in one room? Do you feel happy in another room? If you stand on one side, how rule out the psychological. I said, and what you've done is you've gone home and you've still got that information. So when you stand in your bathroom, you're suddenly aware of possibly ghost energy, a recording energy. You're possibly aware of something that maybe happened there. And one case that we did deal with was a woman who she went on one of our events. The next day, she was brushing her teeth, and she felt very uneasy in the room where she was. And I said, well, where do you live? She said, oh, it's a converted cotton mill. And I said, oh, right. I said, and where would it have been? And she was actually where she actually got the old maps and old layouts of the cotton mill in Manchester. And it turned out she was actually in what looked like a day room where young children were kind of kept in there, and they would go out and they would have to fetch the needles, the big long wooden needles.
Yeah.
And a lot of those children lost fingers. They got their hair caught up in the weave, and it was horrendous. So you can imagine the sense of nervousness that could have been possibly recorded in that area.
Yeah.
And when she became sensitized by going on a ghost hunt and being aware of how to observe, when she went home, she suddenly realized, actually, it doesn't feel great in my bathroom. But again, talking to her, we said, well, look, just don't concentrate on it. Don't feel about it. It's a recording. It's not spirit. And she was fine, absolutely fine. You know, she knew it was just a piece of history that she was sensing.
Yeah, that's it though. You know, it's having that background information, that understanding of what else it is. I think that's a valuable thing for all of us to think about and take away. People say to me, "Do her spirit, our family, do they only communicate us in our dreams?" I said, "No. Your mind's too active during the day, so they're still talking to you. Hello, how are you? And you're not listening. Well, you're just not hearing, because the thought wave is being attenuated. It's being basically with all the electrical activity going on in your brain. It just stopped the signal for the thought wave of reaching the thalamus and being decoded in a normal way. So need to quiet the mind, and you will hear them. So that's why they come at night time, because the brain's less. Your cognitive self is less active.
Absolutely. So, what's the weirdest case that you've investigated? What's the? Have you ever experienced weird paranormal activity on one of the cases that you went to investigate?
One I went to, which again I won't mention location or place. It wasn't a poltergeist, although it can be. You could class it loosely as. I had a phone call from this lady, and she's very, very distraught. She had one of my business cards, and she was abroad. She was a Scottish lady, so she was crying down the phone. And I'm not being rude to any Scottish people here, bless you. Her accent was very, very strong, and I couldn't understand, so I had to ask her to calm down, tell me what's going on. She told me where she was, so I said, okay. I went there thinking, what the hell's going on? And she said, oh, this sort of thing's been happening all the time. Whenever I move, it's with me. So I thought straight away, well, that's got to be a family member then. You know what I mean? Because wherever you go, your family in spirit wants to say hello. And I walked in, and I wasn't prepared for what I saw. I thought to myself, what the hell is this? There was 3 big gouge marks all the way down in the plaster, all the way down on the wall of the staircase. One of these large black ash metal candelabra, for holding the really big, 18-inch candles. There was one of them thrown on the floor. I looked up these stairs. It's one of these where you come in, you're straight into the front room, and you got a little stairs that goes up to the bedrooms. And I looked at the bottom of the stairs, and I asked this lady if I could go up. So I walked up the stairs. There's like a dresser on the landing, like a cupboard or whatever, and the candles were balanced on their tips with their big base pointing up. And I thought that's a good trick. There's one of these little blowfish, you get these glass ornaments where they're obviously blowed and they're coloured green and red and all that. One of them balanced on the tip, and I thought, that's weird. So I put it the right way around, and put the candles the right way around, and then I looked back, and the fish was back on this end again. So I put it back and said, look, stop messing me about. And this woman said, oh, what's happening? Said darling, it's fine, I'm just talking out loud, and all of this. And I says, look, I said, I know we're in your house. I don't want you to think I'm trying anything on. Just walk to the bottom of the stairs. I don't want to. I'm scared. I said, look, it's fine. And I was very much aware at that time that there was a person, a man, sat, in her bedroom. So I said, look, am I allowed to open your bedroom door? I said, I don't want to cause embarrassment to you, and I don't want you to think I'm trying to get you in the bedroom. You have to be careful with those things, don't you, Martin? So
Yeah.
she came up so far, and then I said, right. So I opened the door, and there's a bloke sat on the bed. So I said, what are you doing? I said, what are you doing all this for? I said, you're scaring the life out of this lady. And I was speaking so she could hear me, so she knows I'm doing something. All he said was, again, in a broad Scottish accent, she doesn't listen to me. The family are picking on her. It's always doing this. They're not listening to her. I've told her to stop it. Tell them to sod off, do all of this. And I told her that. She goes, yeah, well, the family are always picking on me. I said, is that why you moved? Well, partly. I said, well, Grandad here, that's who he is. I described him. She goes, oh my God, that's my granddad. I said, yeah, he just wants you to tell the family to back off and leave you alone, sort their own rubbish out, And since it's sorted, it's gone. And at times, Spirit will make it clear enough, not the intent to fright, but I do feel here, you can chuck the odd ashtray on the floor, you can knock a glass over, you can slam doors, depending on your upbringing, whether you contact a church for a priest or a vicar, or whether you contact a medium. And I do feel it got to a point where she contacted a medium finally, and therefore the information gets through. She can then say to family, you need to back off. Problem sorted. Message got through.
It seems quite a strong reaction for Spirit to do that, though. I mean, is that down to the gentleman as well being quite forthright as well? Because that's highly unusual, isn't it? That Spirit would go to that length.
Because you're looking at there being fright caused, and likely she was thinking it was a demon or that sort of thing, but he's been trying to tell her for a long time. She's moved from one area to a totally different area, trying to get away from family, or trying to distance herself from family, and yet it's still going on. So she's not actioned it. It's fine moving, but you can move to the other side of the world and it'll still get to you on your emails, your phone, Skype, WhatsApp, whatever. Yeah. But she wasn't telling them to back off, to leave her alone, get their own rubbish sorted out. So it had to build up to a certain point, that it happened this way, and therefore we get to the point of the matter. The issue then can be looked at. You need to stand back for me, to let me get on with my stuff. You get on with yours. Please leave me alone. And then take it from there. So it's been building up. It's not just sort of, a person doesn't look evil. They don't have red eyes or word evil on their forehead, do they? But I do feel there was probably a sense where the sort of the generalistic sort of thing, would have drunk, Scottish do. And again, I mean no offence to Scottish people. And so he wanted to put the point through. Nobody was hurt. Frightened a little bit, yes, but nobody was hurt. There was nothing thrown at anybody. There was no, apart from some scrapes down the wall, which could be a little bit of plaster maybe, and that's it. You know what I mean? But the problem solved. Never heard from her again. She said thank you, everything's there. She went back, she was out on the front garden, the door was open, her cat was out, it was raining, and I walked away and made sure she was okay, and she went back up to bed quite easily.
Excellent. No, it's strange, because I think that's where we get this, not us personally, but it's a lot of the misconceptions happen, that when people hear cases like that, because you could have rewritten that as, there was an intense Scottish man, kind of poltergeist, evil Scottish man haunting her. It could have been, there could have been, the whole case could have been viewed completely differently if a paranormal team went in, and then next minute she'd be hired out the house would be hired out as
I was thinking that it'd be
as 50 East Drive or whatever in Pontefract. It's strange. I mean, a lot of when I first started investigating was sort of private cases, and I don't really do them no more, because I'm more interested in the research. I've done the ghost hunt, so visited amazing haunted locations, and definitely got plans to go back again with yourself to locations. But I don't really get involved too much in private investigations anymore. If I did hear of a case and people were suffering, then yes, I would. But I always remember one of the first ever cases I ever investigated, and it's probably one that stuck with me. It's stayed with me all my life. It is where I lived in a place called Firth Park in Sheffield. And to be honest, I'll put my hands up now. I had ghost experiences when I was younger. I was always interested in the paranormal. Ghostbusters came out, and me and my friends thought we were Ghostbusters. So for 3 years we were trying to investigate cases in our local area. We did research. We went to haunted places and that sort of thing. And when I got to 16, my parents said, hesitantly allowed me to start putting postcards up, because this is what you had to do. You had to go to a newsagent and put in a postcard up. Have you seen a ghost? That sort of thing. So I think mine said something like, have you seen a ghost, or is your house haunted? We'd love to hear from you, sort of thing. I had a phone call, and this woman said, I live on Oaksfold, which is a very old road at the back of Concord Sports Centre, and I think I've got a ghost. So I thought, well, that sounds all right. I think I'll go over. So unfortunately, my friend Simon couldn't make it that night, and it was really strange. Anyway, I got to the house, and it was a lovely kind of cottage. It dated back way back, pre-1700, definitely, because it was on the maps then. So it was definitely an old house. And because I always started with the history first, I always looked into the history before going there. She invited me in. She said, oh, would you like a cup of tea? I said, oh, yes, please. And she said, oh, you sit down. She said, yeah, I've got the tea here. She poured it me, and she put it on the table in front of me. And then as she put it down, she sat down, it lifted up, and it smashed against the wall. It was like, wow, okay. And it's that piece of evidence, because 100%, this little old woman who then told me about the ghosts that she'd experienced in the house, and there's no way on earth she could have tricked me or done anything with me. She just poured me a steaming cup of tea out of the teapot, put it down. She sat down. She was at least 4 feet away from it, and it lifted up and then smashed against the wall. It didn't go straight to the wall, and the wall was a good 7 feet away. And I was like, wow. So, it's hard really that when skeptics go, I don't believe in ghosts, so all ghosts have explanation. There is no blooming explanation for what I experienced there.
Well, there is one. It's paranormal.
Yeah, absolutely. And or some of the stuff we investigated and the experiences we had in our events. But it's strange. There's a lot of skeptics out there, and it's the in thing, I think, to be skeptical and try to rule out everything, or that can be explained by fear. That's the big key one at the moment, is when you are in a fearsome state, you will hallucinate, you will have this, and that's a big key one. Now, I had no fear there. I was going to interview a woman. I completely can rule that out. And my biggest issue is with all of the skeptics and that sort of thing, is if you're not there when real paranormal activity happens, then you can't really rule it out, because that's the issue. Is that most of these skeptics are not ghost hunting, are not doing stuff like this. The people who write the papers, the noisiest skeptics out there, they are not out there doing the work, the field work. And that's the issue I have, where we were out there all the time. I'm sure it gave you a greater insight in how the human psyche operates, not only with noises that could be explained, but also when really weird stuff did happen, or manifestations or anything.
Yeah.
And I think I'll be honest with you. I think people like myself and you, Ian, have a greater insight into what the paranormal is actually about than many of the skeptics who have written scientific papers over the last 20 years. Absolutely. Convinced of it.
Yeah, it is. But I know you, because the thing is, my guide William, bless him, he always says to observe and not impact with added another valuable of, oh, it's rubbish or it's genuine. It's because if you're all yes, it's going to happen. It's like that thing with the torch. Yeah, can you shine the torch? When you got it in 2 pieces. Oh yes, there's spirit, and then the other 92 times you've asked when it's not happened, doesn't matter when the one that does.
That's like the ghost box. I think it was a paranormal group called Otherworld Northeast, which are really, really good. They're not so active nowadays, but they recorded some ghost box sessions with a number of members, and then afterwards said, "What do you think to it? Do you think Ghostbox is real or not?" And they went, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, yeah." And then they went back through the footage again, and I think they asked 92 questions, and only eight matched up. But it was those 8 that people remembered. They completely forgot about, this the 83 or so or whatever. That made no sense at all. But that's the thing is when you do experience real paranormal activity, and there is real paranormal activity, there is ghost activity, and there is spirit activity. It's an amazing thing that does defy explanation. And I'd say, even though I'm mediumistic, I still cannot fully explain 100% what's going off. No. But I think I have a very, very close idea, but I don't think I have a full idea. And I mean, how do you say? I mean, you're very strong spiritual beliefs from a spiritualist background, but there's still things must be you must be questioning. Do you think?
Well, I do. I always question, because somebody might come up, "Oh, have you thought about that?" I thought, "I've never even heard of that. Can you tell me more?" And then if it changes the parameters of what I believe, then it changes the parameters. I don't think, "Oh no, I've never heard of it, so it's rubbish." I like to understand it, and then think, "Oh no, because you're looking at that, you're looking at this point of view." So I still like to count it in, because you can't know everything. I'm interested in the different dimension, spirit world, this world, how they interact, how the rules of science, E=mc² does not impact over to the spirit side of life. So how can they interact in ours? I like to know what's causing it there. I look at the quantum thing, and I can hear all the skeptics going, "Oh, not that rubbish approach again." when you look at it, like a solid wooden door, it's not solid, because if you look at a room that's say 15 by 15, and you imagined an atom being encompassing all that room, the solid matter is still only about a pinhead or less than. So how is the room solid? How is the door solid? But in our world, it has to be. So is it the rules of our science, so is everything together, and not the spirit world? We've all read cases, where it's a case of heavy objects being moved, going through walls. We've had many a time we've had coins drop from the roof, and people are bloody amazed. They're thinking, "I just saw that 2p piece fall through the ceiling and hit the floor. It was not solid coming through the ceiling, but it was solid when it hit the floor. What the hell's going on?" So what else is going there if it's not at an atomic level?
I totally agree with you. I mean, that's always been the biggest thing for me is that how can the non-physical interact with the physical? And you made some really good points in there. And I mean, I think I've told you before, I experienced at first hand, I experienced an apport. In fact, I've experienced a number of apports, but this really stands out. And it was an angel figurine that moved, and when I went to touch it, I burnt my fingers. And it had also melted the cheap polyester carpet as well. It was red hot, and there was no fire on. There was nothing. The room was closed off, and it went from the mantelpiece into the middle of the room, and it was stood up. It still stood up in so it hadn't fallen off or anything like that, and it was red hot, that thing. So I know there was something happened there, something scientific, I suppose you want to say, happened there, that there was some fluctuation in our reality as we know it. And I think that's what always gets me is that there's something we're not seeing, or there's something, because don't forget, 150 years ago, we were still in carts and horses. We had no idea what was happening in this world. We're still only a pinhead in the knowledge that we've got to gain yet. There's a huge amount of knowledge to come yet.
There is.
And even this last week, they found how atoms react is very different. They think they've found a different kind of behavior of how atoms kind of settle back down. That there's an overriding factor to it. So we're finding that actually atoms and, shall we say, the DNA of how our universe is constructed is not how we imagine. We don't even know what dark matter is. And secondly, we don't even know if dark matter actually exists. The other thing we know is there's some big areas in the universe where there's nothing.
The way they're getting around it, sorry, Martin, the way they're getting around it, sorry, that's my cat. The way we are getting around it, or science is getting around the black matter, is something's causing a reaction to the normal matter. So we can't see anything. So maybe that's why they called it dark matter. So, but something that, that's how they knew when there was planets going down the star, because there's a wobble. So they're looking at it from that and thinking, well, hang on a minute, there's something causing a reaction with, what is it? So they know something's there, but not what. And the same can be with spirit, the Faraday cages, having the sort of situation whereby a musical instrument, whether it be an accordion to violin, is still playing inside a Faraday cage where nothing should be able to impact on it. What is causing it?
No, I mean, this is it. This is why I think living in this era is exciting, and we're finding out. It's always interests me about. I've read a lot of skeptical papers recently, and there's been quite a few, and it just amazes me that they're trying to pin down the paranormal on one explanation. The recent one, as I say, is fear. Because of fear, we interpret situations as being paranormal. But I've investigated hundreds of witnesses, and there's no fear. Yes, there can be misidentifications. Yes, there can be, kind of misunderstandings of what something's happened or whether it did or not. But you cannot pin down the paranormal onto one thing. And, I think both of our points of view is you have to look at the bigger picture. And even as trainee mediums or as mediums, you've got to keep that mind open. You really do. And that's why, when we're very happy that people ask us questions, I never tire of writing, kind of replying back to people who write on our study forum, or people have got a question. I'm happy to, provide a very open answer. And I know you are as well, Ian, is that definitely. Questions are great. And some of the questions make you think about it as well. We had some great questions this week, and I think it's one of the things where if it gets yourself thinking and reevaluating as well, that's great. And we've learned lots from our students, and our students say that they've learned a lot from us. And I hope everybody's enjoying our podcasts as well.
Indeed, yeah.
So, right, we better. It's been 40 minutes, Ian, so we better start winding up. But been a good chat about talking about cases and stuff, because I think that's one thing that most people don't realise is that we have, kind of been to people's houses and been asked to investigate or try and work out what was happening. Well, thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And if you want to buy us a coffee, that helps support our podcast and all of our free content that we put out there. And if you can also leave us a review, we've got 115 reviews on our podcast at the moment.
Awesome. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, it's really good. So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Ian. And this has been Mediums in Action.
Likewise. Bye-bye.